We are tonight's entertainment.
You can't handle the truth.
The fire rises.
Pizza time.
You're a wizard, Harry.
So it begins.
You know how much I sacrificed?
You think that's air you're breathing?
Groovy.
I don't have friends. I got family.
We are Sex People! 1, 2, 3, 4!
Craft Services.
Hey, Trent.
Hi, Parth.
It's good to see you.
You too. I just saw you a few hours ago because we conducted an interview
That's true.
that we can't talk about yet.
We can't. We'll talk about it next week. Originally, the plan was to record this interview at 10, but the guest requested that we push it up to 9:30 a.m. And
Yes.
I had also separately asked Trent on Wednesday if we could record. Well, I actually asked him Wednesday, like 12:30 a.m., which is really for me Tuesday night. And I was asking on Wednesday, can we record? But I think you assumed it to mean on Thursday, can we record? But that was also fine for me because I also forgot to record on Wednesday.
A technicality.
And then we were both on the same page of recording on Thursday. And then I told you, hey, we're recording at 9:30. And I think you took that to mean that we were recording the intro and then the
No,
interview.
you said get on call at 9 a.m. And so I took that as, oh, we're going to record the intro and then have our 30-minute buffer window before our 10 o'clock interview like we usually have. But alas, long story longer, that was not the case. The interview was moved up, and now several hours post-interview, we're doing the intro.
The reason I gave this whole preamble was to say that it was early in the morning, so you saw me eating a piece of toast and having some chai. And then post-interview, I went out to lunch with my mom to Sahara, and I had a chicken Adana kebab sandwich with fries for lunch. What about you, Trent?
Thanks for asking. I, too, wanted to talk about what I was going to talk about this morning and what I ended up actually having, because one is maybe more interesting than the other. So I just had my cup of coffee, and inside the coffee was some coffee creamer. I take it, nice and sweet. And the funny thing worth talking about was my mom said, Trent, this Coffee Mate that we love, for anyone listening, Coffee Mate, they have bad politics. Like, we're protesting Target, we're protesting whoever we hear about that has got bad stuff going on. We're at least making some sort of effort. And so she said, we're not going to buy this Coffee Mate, your favorite creamer, anymore. But just to go out with a bang, here's one more.
Wow.
So here's your chance to say goodbye. So I thought that was a courteous,
Yeah, that's
funny,
a nice way.
funny compromise. But after this, we're good. We're
No
done.
more.
And then I just had, if I needed more dairy, and there was food in between, so I'm not a complete savage. But I made lunch, I just you ever put a brownie in a bowl and then warm it up for 30 seconds in the microwave and then put some ice cream on top? That's
Trent, whenever I have a brownie, that's what I do.
Parth, that's what happened.
That sounds lovely. Did you have any whipped cream?
I had vanilla ice cream. Whipped cream, obviously, if I had it, why not? But yeah, whipped cream, chocolate syrup. Now we're getting to the nitty gritty.
Sophia's family is very much a always has ice cream, always has whipped cream kind of family. I mean, they also bake a lot more with much more frequency than our family does. So it's always nice whenever I go to her house because I always know I could go for some chocolate chip cookies now. They have the dough in the fridge.
My family, too, always tries to have a sort of a la mode option. And so right since I finished the brownies, basically, I went to the store and I got a blueberry pie because that, too, is compatible for a la mode. But what I'll share is, at the bottom of a receipt where it's fill out the survey, maybe you'll win $500. My dad got it into his head that we should start filling out these surveys. It says we'll win $500. That could be big for us. And so, funny thing is, he started doing it, and after 2 weeks, he won $500.
Okay, so we can't make fun of him anymore.
From the Stop and Shop. And so now he's really big on go up to the Stop and Shop, just get one thing and bring home the receipt. And so now I'll leave him receipts on his laptop, in the middle of the night, because he's addicted.
Wow, and what I think the listener is addicted to is our intro. Welcome back to Craft Services, where we talk about the movies. Each week we talk about a film and hopefully have a crew member of that film to talk with us about their experience working on the picture. This week, we've got somebody very exciting. Trent, who do we have?
Wait, Parth, is the exciting person different man editor Taylor Levy?
Trent, you son of a bitch. You got it right.
It is?
It is.
Wait, is this part 1?
And can I say something even better?
Next week will be part 2?
Sure. I was going to say you won $500, but sure, you can have part 2 next week.
It's from Stop and Shop, not the ShopRite, so not our favorite place, but we'll take what we can get. But more importantly, the knowledge that Taylor Levy gave us about editing, about a different man, about life, that's priceless, babe, you know?
Needless to say, like, after that interview, could we call ourselves different men?
Yeah, before our A Different Man editor interview, we were different men, but then after we were changed and we were different men.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, Taylor Levy.
Great job editing the movie.
Yeah,
great job talking on our show.
He was a really good guest, and I don't want to hold it back from the listener any longer. I think they've been patient enough with our talk of a la mode. So why don't we just cue the interview? Hello, everybody, and welcome to our interview with Taylor Levy. He's the editor on such films as The Good Mother, Bodies, 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 and Aaron Schimberg's film, A Different Man. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Glad to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
So just to start off, can you talk about when you first wanted to become an editor?
Yeah, well, when I was in high school, I really wished that I could play music and all my friends were in a band, but I have very little musical ability. So that kind of pivoted for me into like doing a lot of like videos for them, like live show videos, and even like a bit of graphic design for like local concerts and stuff like that. And I ended up making a documentary about my friend's EP release / local concert. So I made like a 12-minute documentary about it. And my sister said to me, "This is really well edited." And I was like, "Oh, well, I like that part of doing this. Like going out and shooting things is so hard, but I really feel comfortable getting on the computer and like making something there." So I kind of just started the curiosity there, and I kept making like short form stuff for fun with my friends. And then came time to go to college, and I wasted a little bit of time not knowing what I wanted to do. And then I was like, I think I'm going to try doing the film thing. I think that's where my heart really is taking me. So I took the risk and went for it, and it seems to be going okay.
And then what was, say, your first feature you edited, or how'd you sort of start breaking into the editing business post-grad?
Well, I had worked like as a wardrobe intern on the HBO miniseries Mildred Pierce that Todd Haynes made. And I went into the office one day and I was like, "This has been great, but I really want to work in post. Can you guys hook me up with that?" But the show was fully staffed for editorial, but they gave me a hookup with the facility that they were posting at, which was Post Factory in New York, which I then ended up interning there for a few years. And interning there at the time was like, making coffee and cleaning dishes in the kitchen and running errands and painting rooms, doing literally anything the post house needed me to do. And through doing that, I met some cool people who thought I was worth giving a shot to work on small stuff. Yeah, that kind of just all snowballed from there. I think you guys might know, like, filmmaking is really network-based career path. I tell people all the time, like, it's about proximity. You got to find a way to get close to someone, literally in distance, to, I feel like, ingratiate yourself upon them and then show that you have certain skills and that you're cool in the room and you're easy to talk to. And then it can kind of build from there. So I was lucky enough to meet some great editors and assistant editors while I was an intern, who then like gave me shots later on. So it was funny, I was working the front desk at Post Factory one night, which wasn't my normal job, but somebody was gone. But I was literally sitting at the front desk where people came in, and someone came out of the Post Factory office and just said, "Hey, do you know how to edit?" And I was like, "Yes, I do know how to edit." And it turned out that someone just tangential to the company, was like looking for someone to come in and work on this feature film that they had been working on for like a year or something like that. They'd already kind of like gone through a cut, gone through some like iterations of the film, but they needed someone to come in. So I was like, yes, of course. And I had a phone meeting with that filmmaker, and I remember being like, hey, you want to just send me the script and I'll give it a read? And he was like, don't worry about the script. That's long gone. You'll just watch what we have and we'll take it from there. And that was a pretty wild job. I worked on it for a while, and it, small budget independent movie that kind of would like stop and go. And so that was kind of the first experience I had cutting like a feature length film.
And how did your career sort of end up with you working on A Different Man? Like, how did you become aware of that project and get on that?
A few stepping stones along the way. Like, I assistant edited for a while with some great editors on some great projects. And I, through an editor mentor and a close friend of theirs who I got close with just from like hanging out at the post facility, just emailed me one day and was like, hey, I heard about this project. It's very small, but they need an editor. You might be good for it. So I met with that filmmaker, and that film was Night Comes On, the Jordana Spiro movie, which was like a Sundance Labs project. And so I thought it had like a good shot of going to the festival, and Jordana was really smart, and the project had a lot of cool things surrounding it. So I got that job, and from that movie did go to Sundance. It did pretty well, and I was able to, get an agent off that movie, and then agents just kind of start, sending you things to read. And I was pretty picky for a while, looking for the right thing, but I've done a few things in between that and A Different Man. But A Different Man, as many other things, just kind of came to me through the team. They were like, my agent was like, this script is really interesting. I think you would get along with the filmmaker. Give it a read and see if it's right. So that's exactly how it came to be. I read it. I thought it was an incredible script. I met with Aaron and thought he was like, I had known from Chain for Life that he was a talented filmmaker. That movie, if you haven't seen it, is great. You should check it out. But he is a very strong and individual filmmaker. He knows what he's trying to do, I would say. And he does things his own way, which I appreciate. Like, I always like taking a risk a little bit when it comes time to make a movie, which was apparent on the page for this movie. It wasn't straightforward. It was almost like, I was curious, how are you going to pull a lot of this off? And in my first meeting with Aaron, he was like, I don't know how we're going to do this. If we don't find the right person to do the makeup for this movie, I don't know that this movie's going to happen. And then it was pretty soon after that Sebastian was able to lock in Mike Marino to do the makeup. And then the whole thing happened really quickly from that point forward. So yeah, it started with just getting the script and then meeting Aaron and loving it and getting along with him, and then being like, okay, I want to be a part of this. And they were willing to have me.
So how long were you attached or like involved with the project? Like, when did that start?
It was very quick on that project. I want to say I read it in March, maybe end of March, maybe met Aaron early April, and we started shooting, I want to say, in May. So it was very...
That's insane.
Because even I've heard Aaron talk about it publicly, the movie just came together really fast. Like, it was like, oh, well, this is happening. We have Sebastian. We have this window of time with him. Okay, now we have the makeup. Let's just go.
I was just wondering what application you edit on, and is it like on your home console, or is it like you go to a edit suite?
I usually prefer to edit in Avid. I've done Premiere jobs. I still do them, but I much prefer working in Avid. I'm faster in Avid, a little more comfortable. And so we did A Different Man in Avid, which we also shot 16. So it's like, I feel like the film workflow, as kind of standardized as it's become, is a little more tried and true with Media Composer. So we did it in Avid, yeah.
But if the client wants it done on Premiere, you'll edit on Premiere? Or?
I like to be flexible for the filmmaker. Yeah, like some filmmakers like to want to get their hands in there every once in a while, and that doesn't bug me. So I just always give it with a caveat. It's like, give me a few weeks of relearning my muscle memory in this application. I might be a little bit slower to start, but I don't want to hamstring the creative process of the filmmaker by this application. As much as I prefer Avid, like I've done enough work in Premiere, and I might get frustrated along the way, but only at the limitations of the program, maybe due to like crashing or this and that. But I know that I can do what I want to the story and the film the same way in the end, you know. And I know you asked if I work at home. I actually don't like to work at home at all. I worked at home in 2020, but ever since then I push hard to always go in office. It's especially like in New York, we don't have a ton of space, and my partner works from home. So like between that, it's like I can't bring a filmmaker into there's just not enough room to do it. And I think part of that editorial process, the best part is getting close with the filmmaker, the director, spending time in the edit, like refining the movie, and just, you know, having chats after lunch about other stuff, you know, bonding with one another.
I'm sure it's a case-by-case basis depending on the film, but like what's sort of the range of how much the director is in the room with you versus like sending you emails?
I always like to be flexible, so if they don't want to come in, I always give them the freedom not to, but I think 100% of the directors I've worked with have been in the room a lot of the time. Like of course, I'm building the edit while they're shooting. They're not in for that. Sometimes I'm sending stuff and letting them know what's up and how it's going. But, you know, most directors I've worked with want to be there and usually enjoy the process of watching us like sculpt the movie together and calibrate all the small parts of it. Yeah.
It's sort of surprising to me how quickly this movie came together. There's a lot of like oneers and long takes in the movie. Was there ever any coverage or options for you to edit those scenes differently? Or were those sequences sort of like, that's what it's going to be?
Yeah. Well, I don't know how long Aaron had the script for. I just know that like once Sebastian got picked up, it was going quick. But I don't know how long he had it for. But in terms of the way he covers scenes, like I was blown away pretty immediately when the dailies came in. I was like, whoa, they're going to move the camera this way. It's very old school. It's very like, I always like thought it was very like Alexander McKendrick, like where it's like the scene repositions itself a lot throughout a single scene in really cool ways. They're not like oneers in that I see in a lot of other films where it's like you become very aware of the fact that you're like kind of in this, but these are more,
they're like Spielberg oneers.
Yeah, they're like they move where they need to move, and they get in close, and they're far when they need to be. And it was pretty obvious early on in the dailies, like, oh, this is what Aaron's thing is, and Wyatt, for that matter, the DP. They just had an incredible sense of space. Like they would put the camera in a place that would just cover so much space, make the geography clear without ever making it too showy. Like it always seems like it's about character first, even though the camera's like doing a whole lot. But that being said, Aaron's a smart filmmaker, and he would cover the scenes in other ways just in case. Like sometimes you run out of time on an indie movie and you don't have other stuff. But there are plenty of scenes in A Different Man where there was, you know, single coverage or other coverage. And in building my assembly, I always like to kind of like make use of everything, knowing that there's a chance it gets scaled back or something like that. So there were a lot of scenes where I had more coverage used in some of the dialogue. Not to say that I wanted to, but just to be like, hey, this is what we have. This is where I would go in if we were going to go in. And pretty quickly we were like, actually, we don't need this. We don't need this stuff. I think it's, again, a testament to Aaron and Wyatt and the way, and Sebastian and the actors for that matter, because it's like they carry their space so well and the blocking is so strong that you never feel like you're missing out on anything or you're not getting enough detail on something, I feel, because we're not, you know, going in. And then I think when we have scenes that are kind of built for coverage, they can feel a bit, you know, more energetic, a little bit like burst, you know, amidst all the other stuff. I think that's also why me and Aaron would like to kind of punctuate the beginning and end of scenes sometimes, because the middles can kind of suck you in with the camera work and the long take. And then right at the end, you just get a kind of like a little jolt.
Just while we're talking about the long takes, there's many choices being made, but during those long takes, you aren't physically cutting. And I was just wondering, like, what is the sort of like invisible work that you're doing as the editor in a scene where you're not worried about the cutting?
Yeah, well, spend a lot of time making sure you have the right one. And sometimes that can be tricky because they can all have great stuff in them sometimes. But the thing that me and Aaron did a lot is we would go through every other take for dialogue readings and see if there was like a better piece of dialogue that could get cut in to the camera select that we were using for that scene. And I don't think we did it like tremendously, but we did that on every scene. Like, let's go through and make sure that we have every line reading that we like. And if it can get swapped out and fit in and be better, we'll do that. So we did do that on every scene, just checking it out. And then another thing that I always do on every film, but I think it was more apparent on A Different Man, is I like to do the detailed sound work in the edit. So there are a lot of like sounds of the city and things that go by outside windows and stuff that are things that I had in the edit to help kind of fill the world, or, you know, and sometimes they might be filling space. But yeah, I remember like there's a scene early on when he comes into his apartment the first time, and we have a piece of music that's purely just for a car passing by outside the apartment. You know, it's been muffled, you can barely hear it. But we like got a piece of music so that while he's coming into his apartment, like if you live in New York, you know, you hear things go by all the time. So we wanted to like make it a super New York-y movie. So we would like do little things like that to help create, you know, more built out world.
So is your sound design that you're building, what is your communication with the actual sound design team? Like, what does that handoff look like?
Well, on every movie, you pass off like an AAF of whatever is in your edit. You know, every sound effect that I have in there, the sound editorial team gets to see. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, then up to them if they want to replace anything that I put in with a better sound effect or something different, or if they think we don't need it at all, or, you know, is the thing I put in good enough and they just keep it. So it's always kind of like a piecemeal of that sort of stuff. We had a great sound designer on this movie, and me and him got along really well. So there was a lot of things where I was like, hey, I just want to know, like, you're going to do this thing right here, right? Like this noise outside is not like an accident, or this noise here is something we actually care about. So don't make it too clean, or don't think anything was an accident.
So you just sort of do a first draft sound-wise, and then you hand it off to the sound people, and they do the final draft?
Yeah, so at like most movies, it's like you hand it off, and then there's like a bunch of weeks of sound editorial where they, you know, clean up the dialogue, cut in sound effects, cut in Foley, build, you know, the kind of sound session that then you'll work from when you go in to do the final mix, like on the stage with them, where you go through the whole thing, noting it, dialing everything in. It's one of my favorite parts of the process. You just get to sit there and kind of watch the film get better usually. You know, the sound gets clearer, everything gets crisper, all the sound effects are more poignant. So I do love that collaborative part of editing.
While we're talking about sound, I wanted to ask about your collaboration with the composer, because the music in this movie, I mean, music is a big deal in all movies, but I feel like the score in this one is so impactful on the tone of so many scenes and in transitions between scenes. Can you talk about that? Yeah, well, working with Umberto and Aaron was like a dream. Like it was just a great trio, the three of us. I feel like we all kind of understood each other and could communicate really well. Umberto is also just like the loveliest Roman man I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. He's so sweet. So I remember I don't know if dailies had started yet. I think it was before dailies, and he had sent a sketch of the theme, like a demo. And that's the theme that's in the movie. Like the minute I heard it, I was like, oh, this is great. And Aaron was into it. We were all into it. And so we just kind of like had that jumping off point even before anything was getting put together, which was a real luxury. Like sometimes I didn't have to hunt for temporary score. I could just kind of go into Umberto's demo and try stuff out from there. And I respect Aaron a lot. He doesn't like to use music to like manipulate the movie too much emotionally. He likes to just let it live. And I agree with that philosophy. I don't love cutting to music. I like it to work. And then the music is like another layer
on top of something or underneath something that's already working. And so there was definitely fun times where like Umberto was like, I want to put music here. And we're like, I don't know. But then he would make something and it would be great. So it would go in. So I think we found like a really nice balance in the movie where it is not overly dressed with music, I would say, but where it plays is very effective. And as you mentioned, I love music as transitions or joins to things instead of being underneath scenes to being more like commentary on all the other story moments you see or part of montages. And Umberto just delivered on so many of those moments, you know.
So without giving too much away, this movie has like a medium time jump and then like sort of a big time jump. And did you and the director have any conversations about, were you trying to distinguish these portions of the movie, or did you want there to be a continuity stylistically over the whole thing?
Yeah, the time jumps were always built in, obviously. How explicit they were going to be was the debate. It's like, do we put a card up? You know, we had that conversation for maybe like 10 minutes, and then we were both kind of like, what if we just didn't? What if it just went and we let everyone kind of catch up? So that we did that, which I think is really effective in the movie. It keeps you on your toes.
I'm remembering, sorry, I'm just like cracking up, just like remembering Sebastian Stan's like cardboard cutout. It's so funny. I just have to commend you,
Yeah,
everyone on that.
That might or might not live in Aaron's home.
That's awesome.
A cool keepsake, I would say, from the movie. But yeah, the time jumps were just kind of part of the DNA of the movie. And then just kind of being aggressive about them also, I think, part of the DNA of the movie. You know, in the third act, it really kind of hits a crazy velocity of time, which I think we both thought was fun. So we just kind of leaned into it.
But you weren't thinking about them in different ways or trying to edit them differently?
Not consciously. I think I more react to what Sebastian and the actors are giving. And, you know, I think the second half of the film is overtly more comedic because of Sebastian. I think the first half of the movie is hilarious as well. But even in the edit we talked about, we can't expect the audience to laugh in the first part of the movie because they're still kind of like getting to know Edward, and they might kind of feel weird laughing at him, even though you're not laughing at him. The movie is making tons of crazy situations. But I do think we discussed that in the edit, which is like people might not know which way we're going. And then by the second half of the movie, I think you're a bit more in tune to the comic sensibility. So between like the overt kind of comedic things in the second half and Sebastian's performance, I think that's kind of what dictated more than anything what we needed to do with the cut.
Speaking on the balance, was there takes where it was like, okay, this is a little bit broader comedically, and then a take where it's a little bit less, and then you were like fine-tuning that? Because there is like a definite, like you're saying, comedic or like overtly comedic shift that I think really works, but I don't know how much that was figured out in post versus on the day, like they just knew what was going on.
Yeah, I can't recall too much being like broad. That was like, oh, let's try this crazy thing out. There were a few, you know, scenes and moments that maybe were broader and they got trimmed out, but they were usually for other characters. Sebastian, I think, was pretty dialed in. So like he has a great sensibility and never really went too big. And the times he kind of goes big, I think, are in the movie, and they get good laughs. But I can't recall anything that was like, oh, we need to like play with what he's doing here too much. There were some other moments, but none of that kind of second half Sebastian stuff needed that sort of touch. And then Adam is like a straight shooter. He's kind of doing a very consistent performance, and I think a lot of the comedy comes off of how straight he's doing a lot of it. So he's never going so big either. So it's all just part of like the built world, I think. And it wasn't like, you know, I've done comedies where it is a bit more like, oh, we have this super goofy take and we have this take, and this was more played for the drama, and then the comedy would come out of it.
Good interview, Parth. Way to go. But also, good first half, because it stopped kind of abruptly.
Yeah, I have to say, I almost wish there was a second part, and the good part there is Different Man Part 2 interview will be coming out next week. Where, Trent?
Different man, different interview, different options of streaming services. For example, Spotify. For example, Stitcher. For example, Apple Podcasts. So on and so forth, wherever you get your podcasts. And then social media. You like social media? You tapped into the web like Parth and I?
Mhm.
Instagram.
Guys, can I say something? The internet, it's not a fad. I think it's not a fad.
You think it's... Parth says it's here to stay. And if Parth says that, I'm logged on. I'm logging in. My screen time is a problem. I'm trying to address it.
Is it? Wait, what's your screen time?
Probably too much. I don't know. Well, it's like not even necessarily my phone. It's like boring. It's like my email. It's like I'll just check my email over and over again. I don't get it.
When I was in high school, I had a pretty obscenely long or large phone screen time. Now it goes between like 3 and 4 hours a day. But the problem is, like, I don't even really know how I would reduce my laptop screen time, because basically all of my work is all on a laptop, either sending emails or editing something or working on a spreadsheet of some kind. And yeah, so
It's funny the corner we've backed ourselves into.
Rip to our eyes and ears, I suppose.
Yeah. But I said earlier that the advice and sort of editing work that Taylor Levy talked about was priceless. But it's basically, without the part 2, it's kind of useless.
Yeah.
Without to wrap it all together.
Well, if there's one thing Taylor Levy understands, it's that it's about the whole thing. It's not just any one half.
Taylor Levy, when editing A Different Man, wasn't like, at that midway point, wasn't like, we're good. He went ahead and he edited the second half of the movie. He didn't say release them in 2 different parts a week apart. That's sort of our thing. That's sort of our whole thing.
But that's what we're doing, and we will have it out next week.
Next Sunday, 5 a.m.
Set your alarm clock for 4:30.
Set your alarm clock. Be there, be square.
And don't worry, we'll make a post. In case you don't set your alarm clock, you forget, there'll be a post on Instagram or Twitter to remind you, you better listen to that frickin' interview.
Parth, my dad is like, I can't. He's trying to delete his old X account, like, just to be safe, because he thinks since Elon owns it now, it's like not politically correct to have one. And he's like, these fuckers, they don't want you to delete your account. And I was like, it's the whole world. They've got us. They don't want us to delete our accounts.
We're ending this episode on an interesting note.
Parth, I'm surprised we still have an X, but we're just trying to stay...
We're just trying to stay relevant. We're just trying to stay in the know.
I'll do anything to
with
stay
the
on the web.
Mm-hmm.
Parth,
Remain logged on.
I'm going to Google you after this.
Oh, yeah?
Google, Google images. I'm going to see where that takes me. Goodbye.
Goodbye,
Parth.
listener. We'll see you next week.
Goodbye, singular listener.
Hey.
No, wait. Not, like, because who's listening to this, like, with a friend? That'd be crazy. Well, actually, maybe not.
Maybe, what if you're on, like, a really long drive? I went on a drive to Rhode Island. I listened to the Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend podcast with Elle Fanning. She returned to the Conan podcast, Trent. It was me and Sophia. And Conan didn't say singular listener.
Been emailing L's people. They've been...
Yeah. See if she'll come one time, let alone return.
Let alone return. I mean, if we got her once, I think she'd be eager to return.
Yeah.
But it's that first time with L.
Yeah.
That's difficult.
We'll see you next week, guys.
Oh, I hope this gets cut.